Hey folks, it's Anthony Christie. I'm about to invite Gareth Hodges, the creator of Crucible, into a Google Hangout talk. Apologies for this, but just trying to figure out if he's here.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
are you there? Okay. Okay. Awesome.
Okay.
So I'll just move this out of the way for a moment so you can see my screen. And I'll just invite a few more people. You're welcome to invite people or give me their email addresses to invite them. I'll just leave one second. So I'd just like to say welcome to everybody, and whether you're watching this in YouTube in the future or live, we don't have anyone yet apart from Gareth and myself, but it's all right. That's all part of it. Just
hello, everyone from the future.
Yes, hello, the future. You can't. Can you see me or not? I don't think I'm on video. You're on video, but I'm not. So
yeah, I'm my mugshot's down the bottom, and you're just art all the way down.
Yeah. Ooh, but I don't know.
Okay.
Can you invite people, or we're not able to invite people?
I will try and invite somebody now.
Yeah, try and invite them. If you can't, you're welcome to give me their email and I'll invite them for you. Because it might be because I'm like the admin, I have to invite them. But we've made it public. I believe it's live. Everyone can watch me.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got viewers. Like if on the actual Google Plus page, there's a couple.
There are some viewers. So there are some viewers somewhere on Google Plus. Okay.
So.
Okay.
So, yeah. Well, we'll just keep plugging away and.
Yeah, we'll keep talking, and yeah, I'll let you keep on inviting people and see how we go, and I'll talk about the painting.
Yep. And sure.
If I need to do anything, let me know, because my window is on another screen now, so I had to get rid of that Google Hangouts window and move it over. So we're talking about doing some sort of a bird, like one of those. What's the creature called again? Apologies,
The inspiration for it is the Cylon Raider spaceships from Battlestar, but the idea is just a winged creature with forward swept wings that sort of looks like a crescent shape that whizzes through the air through some kind of magical power, and that these are sort of an equivalent to and live amongst birds in the world of Crucible, which is what the art piece is being worked on for.
Yep, cool.
So it's just taking inspiration from somewhere and tweaking it a bit and seeing if it looks good in our world.
Always good way. Inspiration is always good. I'm just gonna pull this out and deselect this. Just check.
So it's just taking inspiration from somewhere and checking it out. We're going to get feedback here.
You got someone there?
My partner is on a computer 2 meters away listening, so the audio was getting feedback. So.
Okay, cool.
But and unfortunately, I've got the headphones. So.
Oh no. It's all good.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Yeah. So
Just going over
turning it into the aerodynamic sort of.
Well, yeah, it could. I mean, this idea, if there was a bird like that, would be it looks kind of something. I don't know. For some reason, I'm thinking something South American. Do you know what I mean? Like there might some mythical creature from South America.
Yeah.
Exists.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I see them sort of like they're not birds strictly. They because they don't flap their wings. They just kind of float around.
Gotcha.
Like.
Do they have feathers though? Are they feathery wings?
No, I see it more like, imagine if you got MC Escher and HR Giga together and told them to design a harmonica. I sort of like a flying harmonica. That's kind of the closest in my head I could come to.
Okay, so it is a metallic object, or is it are they mechanical, or are they organic, or
sort of it's that sort of hard organic kind of stuff that you see in a lot of Giga's works is what comes to mind. So it's like, you know, if you were to catch one, it would be solid and probably slightly slippery, you know, and no moving parts, but it would take off from your hands if you didn't hang on to it.
How big is it?
I guess they would vary in size. I sort of see the small ones being sort of dinner plate size, and you could get them. I mean, the scale of the Crucible world is pretty big, so there might be ones hundreds of meters across, sort of in the upper atmosphere, maybe. But the ones that people are familiar with would be, you know, seagull size, I guess.
Yeah. So kind of like that.
Yeah.
Does that structure make sense? I mean, do they have an eye or a beak or something as well?
Well, look, I mean, I just have the inspiration. We can see how it looks in different formats. All I had really in mind was the structure of it and the material and the shape. So the details, you're the art guy. I'm happy to see what you come up with.
Yeah, I think though, for the purposes of this environment, I think they just need to be like something in a distance, like a bird. Like you wouldn't see the details. Do you know what I mean? Like you just have this shape as a brush. I was thinking more just a brush.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we might get a more close up in a different piece of art, but for this.
This would have to be like concept design specifically, so that we get it right. You know.
Yeah. So just the hint of something familiar enough that people can go, oh, that's a bird, and then different enough so that they go, hey, hang on a second.
Yeah, is that a bird or not a bird?
Shape. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just basically going to play with this or use this. I'll just. All I've done is cut out that shape and paint it over it. Very, I suppose, rough and nothing fantastic. Just very, very rough at the moment. But I'll just make sure. Sorry, I'm just going to turn off this phone.
That's okay.
See if we can get it. I've got one more person maybe coming in. Wait a second.
Awesome.
If I can figure out how to do this. Just getting all this sorted. How long have you been working on this game for, would you say?
Sorry, what was that?
How long have you been working on the game for?
Since early last year. Basically around, I guess, March, April last year, a group of my friends and I were sitting around. We'd been doing a lot of playtesting together for other games and as a group, and we just sort of had a few ideas that we wanted to work more on. That we'd just finished a big project for somebody else, and we thought, well, why don't we take a crack at doing this ourselves? And so we flung around some ideas, and it evolved into what we now have as the Crucible. We ran the Kickstarter in October last year. That was a huge learning experience, and then since then we've it's all been all hands to the pump. Basically, our original goal was to get everything produced for Christmas this year. The only thing that would push that back would be if we got extra funding, which would mean that we could do more art and make the book prettier, in which case we'd want to spend more time getting it right. So we've been doing a lot of playtesting through some of the local conventions and the game stores, it's been received really positively. I think the main thing that people find interesting with this is, well, the two main things is we use coins instead of dice.
Yeah, cool.
And as a not just as a prop for game wealth, but as an intrinsic part of the mechanic. So you're throwing handfuls of coins, and the Kickstarter partially is to fund the creation of custom designed coins for that. And the other thing is the diversity angle. You know, we've tried to make the world of Crucible as open to different types of diversity. You know, gender diversity, sexual diversity, race diversity, body shape diversity, that sort of thing, to make it inclusive for everyone.
Oh, yeah, cool.
And you know, making it explicit in the text of the book, and through things like the artwork. So, I mean, doing a landscape piece like this, it's not as apparent, but the figure, for those who are watching, Anthony and I discussed this figure and gave them sort of tried to give them non-standard proportions.
Yeah.
So body shape not being.
Yeah, well, this is a woman here, but she's quite, I suppose, well, she's not your stereotypical, like, kind of thin character, you know, like she is a bit chunkier, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. So she's obviously would kind of be like, what's that girl, that lady from Game of Thrones, the blonde-haired one? Like, I'm really bad at names.
Rita Taff.
Yes, very much like that.
Yeah.
You know, if not maybe even larger. Hence why I'm making this dress larger. So that way it appeals to everyone. So yeah, that's what it's about. So
yeah, one of the things that we're also doing is trying to have a range of cultures that are not appropriative of earthly cultures. Like, one of the rules with our design of the game was we didn't take anything from a living earthly culture. So a lot of our inspiration, if you can point to an earthly connection, it's sort of, you know, Sumerian, you know, Akkadian, like really, really ancient stuff. And we've drawn more on the animal world than human culture for most of our inspiration. Because of the six species, only humans are humanoid. In fact, they're the only mammal of the 6 species that you can play in the game. So
there's many humans. Are you saying? Is that what you're saying, or?
There's humans are one of the 6 species. The others are the Akrasi, who are plant-based, and you know, anything from sort of traditional medieval depictions of mandrake through to, you know, wood spirits, to ents, to, you know, anything that you can think of that would have been a way of depicting a sentient being who is plant-based is within the scope of description for that species. We've got the, you know, you can't have a fantasy game without some kind of dragon pit person. So we've got Drake, who are reptile-based, and again, the range of their description is very fluid. It's, you know, if you can think of an earthly reptile or snake or a dinosaur or a dragon image, then that fits in the world. There's the skier, who are insectoid, again, same range. There's built into the world is an explanation for why there's such diversity even within species. There's a force called the flux, which governs a fair chunk of the world, which makes diversity a big thing. Then there's the Calatur, who are shaped out of stone. So again, basically, if you can sculpt it, you can make a Calatur look like it. So they're quite diverse. And the Yakshai are our water-inspired species, and they shapeshift based on their emotional state. So they're kind of like emotional shapeshifters, I guess. They, you know, when they're very calm or very reserved, they're sort of spiky ice bodies, and when they're passionate or full of anger or enthusiasm, they expand out into these big storm cloudy kind of forms. So yeah, so there's a lot of visual diversity that we're trying to capture in doing this world, and we're trying not to make humans boring in the face of all of that. They're not the default race. Sorry, we don't use race in this game, we use species. They're not the default species. They're just one of the 6, and have their own place in the scheme of things. So this thing that you're drawing, this landscape, is one of the parts of the central area of the Crucible. The broader continent is called the Settle, and this is one of the less populated and less cultured areas. Not cultured, less civilized. God, still the wrong word. Less, how can I put it? Less built up with buildings.
Fair enough. Like a distant kind of place.
Yeah. So the people who live there are, traditional nomads.
So have we got anyone else that's joined? We don't know. We had one viewer. I think we had one viewer. They disappeared. This is interesting. That's all right. Look, it's good because we're recording this for future. And
I can see there are 2 others apart from ourselves watching.
Okay, cool. But it just says like us 2 at the moment. So
okay, I've got.
I can see. So now there we go. Yeah, 2 viewers. It's all cool.
Yeah.
So
So hello to our 2 viewers, Emily and Tyler.
Are you able to see any chat Q&A section? I think people can type in the Q&A section if they want to type any questions. Myself or I think there's Emily there at the moment. You can type in. I don't know.
Yep.
Oh, there you go. You've got something there. So. Someone's asking questions. So what are they exactly? Are they animals or some kind of created object?
Hold on. I think I'm not looking at the right page now.
If you go to Q&A on the left, if you can get that on the Google Hangout panel, if you have a look here, there's a Q&A. You got to scroll over. There's Q&A. Then you see there's a question there. So I'll let.
Okay.
We'll go back to there. Sorry for the double up on menus there, everyone. So you can ask questions there. Everyone, if you go to the Q&A section, you should be able to ask questions there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just interesting that what you're saying about different types of things. We have humans as well in our world, but like it's weird.
Yes. Sorry, go on.
You've found it?
Yep.
We have humans as well, but it's like they're one of the major races, but there's 6 major races in our world as well in Luminous Ages, and it's the same sort of. We're kind of. I think this is why we connected in terms of game design, is because I'm on the similar path of trying to create. It is for children. Our game, the game and the comic is G-rated. But at the moment, the main focus is having a comic or a card game that's focused on multiculturalism, equality, all that sort of stuff.
Cool.
But the biggest focus for us is environmentalism as well. Cool. Part of the narrative in the story is, it's like, I would like to kind of say that our world as well is like, imagine James Cameron's Avatar meets Game of Thrones, but G-rated.
Right, okay. Well,
that's pretty much it. So there's no extreme sex scenes or violence or anything like that. And look, there may be a hint of a romantic relationship between 2 men or 2 women, but it's not that is an important thing. But the focus is basically representing as many things as I can in the storyline. So it has that has a message of environmentalism, a message of equality, message of multiculturalism. But the other thing is as well with Luminous Ages is it's interesting you say about not having the stereotypical fantasy of always going towards the Western aesthetic for fantasy, your typical medieval kind of thing. The way I'm doing it is I'm drawing upon the culture that my ancestors or my family come from, which is more the Middle Eastern, Mediterranean. Because people don't touch on Egypt, or they don't touch on Greece, or they don't touch on the Middle East as being kind of the dawn of fantasy in a way. And even indigenous cultures, looking at one of our artists is part indigenous Native American. So, we're trying to tie in that mythology and that fantasy, that genre of fantasy, into the aesthetics of our character designs and in our, creature designs and stuff as well. So we have like a lot of creatures that come from the mythologies of the Sumerians, the ancient Greeks, the Egyptians, native. I'm talking to someone from, First Nation Australians, Indigenous people of Australia, to talk about possibly getting the rainbow serpent into the comic and the card game. So that's kind of like, that's why I think I was attracted to what you're doing, and I think why we're kind of on the same path. Different but same in a good way. Does that make sense? Would you agree? Or,
Well, I mean, the thing about diversity is that there's a lot of it. Like when you start exploring non-traditional themes in a game, then you start discovering exactly how diverse the influences that you can draw on are. And I mean, as somebody who has that heritage, you have a passion, and you can legitimately call on that sort of stuff to inspire your work. I guess for me, being a sort of straight down the line white bread kind of Anglo-Saxon back 10 generations, I'm very wary of claiming heritage that isn't my own as a source of inspiration. So I've been very careful to basically try and explicitly not do that, which means that the themes sometimes take on, I mean, some of them it's really hard to dig down and get through the layers of a century worth of pop culture and media presentation of things to actually find something original.
I think that's why I'm kind of drawing from those other cultures as well. I mean, it's not even just my culture, looking at my roots and the other artists as well that are in it, but like looking at other cultures for ideas. Do you know what I mean? Like the really ancient ones, kind of similar. So it is the same in the sense that we are using that to kind of make it a bit different. So, but I know what you mean. Like, it's not even about me in the sense of, okay, it's just, I'm not creating a whole bunch of Greek or Egyptian stuff because it's about me. There's other cultures that I'm going to have into it, tie into it, and different mythology that's very different. That hasn't been represented or shown before as well. That's not so mainstream. I mean, but even there's things like there's some cultures that even in Nordic mythology, I mean, everyone knows Thor, but they don't know a lot about Fenrir, or they don't understand the rest of the mythology behind Nordic mythology. There's some really cool concepts there, and in all mythologies, really, people know the most popular thing in Greek mythology. They all know about Hercules or Xena, the Amazon, but they don't necessarily even know, about other certain things, So it's more about introducing new ideas think in a different way. And sometimes it is like I actually have to design I am also designing my own creatures or sub creatures that get created in this world as well. So there's going to be a whole range of things that happen. Now, what I'm doing here, for those, I've got your this is an organic creature. So Emily asked a question. So what are they exactly? Are they animals or some kind of created object?
Okay, I'll give the elevator pitch version. The answer is yes. So one of the things about the Crucible is that the power level of characters and player characters who come into this world is on a very steep curve, and within a few sort of increments of going up in power, characters will be within the scope of characters to create new species of animals and plants and that sort of thing. So at some point, somebody in the Crucible decided that these flying things should exist. So and somehow made them either out of something else, or just out of nothing, depending on how powerful they were. They obviously at some point served a purpose for that individual. It could have been a whim, like a godly whim, if they were vastly powerful. But however, whatever reason they did, they made them able to reproduce, and now they're a part of the ecosystem of the world. So they are an animal, they are alive, they can breed, they're probably, a little bit weird, but they're the sort of weird that people who've lived with it for generations would not consider weird anymore. But they originated at some point from a being in the world going, I want this to be so. So yeah. At the moment, that's all I have for these things. When we actually write the bestiary section of the book, I'll have an explanation of what and why. But at the moment, I'm trying to, because I'm being a writer and having zero art talent, I usually start with a description, like a purpose for things that I write. I'm trying, as I work with artists, to start the other way around and start with a visual and then work backward into an explanation, just to see if I can come up with new material that way. And this is one of those experiments that we're doing live.
So I'm just placing, I mean, like, honestly, like the proper way to do it, my advice is you create a brief, right? This problem, and you give it to someone like me who's a concept artist and designer, and say, this is what I want. Give us a brief, but say the idea is give a brief, but also be flexible and say, it's your best idea. What do you think it should look like? You know what I mean? And you give a guideline, and then let me kind of go away with it. And I suppose that's why you need a budget to do that with your next Kickstarter, you know. But that makes it a lot easier, because sometimes like when you're working with artists, it's sometimes a good idea. I mean, obviously we have to work to a brief, and that's part of being a good illustrator, but having that little bit of freedom where if we present a new idea or a better idea, not that your idea is bad, but we present something that you've never even thought of that actually works just as good. That's what an artist is there for, not to kind of be, and I'm not saying you're like that at all, but you know, not to be kind of spoon-fed, you know, everything. You know what I mean? Like if you go, hey, this is what I'm thinking, can you go kind of along these lines? But give us your best idea. And I think that's what kind of worked out with environment. You kind of said, hey, I want a landscape, a plains type environment scenario. And gave me the freedom to do that. You just said, hey, there's got to be this pyramid thing in the sky which creates, life, or it's the main architecture that created life on that planet. He said it needs to be a rugged kind of landscape, you know, barren, almost rugged, barren, expansive, kind of like the Australian outback. And that's what I came up with. You know what I mean? And the sun comes from above. At first, I thought the sun was behind, but that was my fault. But
that's okay.
Yeah, but that's part of it. So
I mean, I guess the other skill that I'm learning as a writer, this is the first project where I've worked with illustrators and artists, is learning how to describe what I'm thinking in a way that you can get. Because I'm very used to communicating with words. I'm not at all used to communicating with pictures, and that's effectively what this project is trying to do with this art. And so, you know, learning how it sounds to you as an illustrator, and the fact that, you know, some things that I think are completely obvious haven't been, and some things that I find completely baffling, you're just like, oh yeah, and we can just go slap, 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 and then boom, and there it is. You know, that, you know, it's it's really an awesome exercise in collaboration when you get it right.
Well, I think we're getting there, and like I think honestly,
Yeah.
we're kind of getting, like in a sense of this is our first kind of major thing we've done together, and I think it is a matter of time and experience, and like next time it'll be. Well, it wasn't even hard. I don't even think it was hard at all. But next time it'll be a little bit more smooth or less bumpy. And that's what I usually find with my clients is like after a while with whoever I've worked with, whichever author, you've nailed out all the kinks in the process and the workflow and the way you communicate with each other that it becomes easier. So it saves time and money. You know what I mean? That's a good thing about it. So I'll just explain what I did. What I did was I created the creature that you described before. What are the names again? No, they're not Cylons. They're the ones from. What are these ones called again?
I don't have a name for them yet in the world of Crucible. In fact, if somebody who's watching does have an idea for a name for these crescent-shaped things, by all means, let us know.
Cool. So I was right in not knowing the name.
Yes. I know a lot of the names of things in this world so far, but not everything. Yeah, it's evolving.
Yeah, I think that's kind of actually the way my world is. Luminous Ages is working. We've written a script for the first 3 series of the comic. The first series, of the comic. We've written an outline for the first 3 series, but the first comic book is the first 10 episodes or the 15 episodes, whatever it is. It works out to be with the art. The first whole season has been written, but I'm still evolving and creating more creatures and characters and subplots into the world. And even with the game, there's going to be other creatures that are coming about. So it is part of the creation process. George R. Martin, when he made Game of Thrones, took him 10 to 20 years. You know what I mean? And I'm not comparing myself to that at all, but I'm just saying like creating these worlds can be big projects, and it just takes time. I'll explain what I just did is I created the creature, and this is a silhouette. It's not even a finished design. It's just a rough outline of the idea. And what I've done is I've created a brush. So I've defined a brush preset, and if I go into Photoshop, that brush preset now, I've created a brush, and as you can see, I'm painted them into the sky like they're flying across.
Yeah.
Now, that's probably, they're really small ones. You could they're kind of mid-sized ones. In a distance, they'd be quite large. But the only other way I could think of doing it is you could have reasonably large ones or smaller ones over here. Sorry, that's just my profile thing, whatever. Have that over here, that kind of distance over there. So I just turn it off. So you could have them like that. So they almost do look like a flock of birds, but it kind of creates that. The only thing I was thinking is just in terms of design element is like, there's just an idea. Maybe because they're kind of manufactured creatures, they're linked with this. Now maybe they draw energy from the actual crucible, the structure. So maybe they're flying like a flock of flying up. And what also design-wise, from an illustration design purpose, I'm just going to erase it. From an illustration purpose, when you're designing something, you want to draw people's attention to things. So like this is obviously this landscape. You want to keep people looking at this landscape. So you could have like, a little flock kind of, they would be smaller than that. So they would be kind of flocking up to the structure. So your eyes being led into the landscape, and then you could even have a small lot kind of going like that or flocking up like that. So what's happening visually is your eyes being drawn into the whole scene. It's like a circle. So we've got off page, you have the birds coming in, leading their own, plus the rocks are pointing this way as well. So the birds are leading in. Then I'll make this a little bit smaller. Then they're coming around the pyramid structure. Then they're coming out of here, and bang, they're fading off behind the rocks. Behind these rocks. So that it's all being led in, and these rocks are leading you in. So that's how the eye works when you're designing things. You probably see these patterns. Now I'm talking about these patterns in design theory and illustration theory, it's probably going to make sense when you look at other illustrations. You go, oh, I see what Anthony was talking about. So I don't know. How do you feel about that size? Do you want them bigger? Do you want them smaller?
I like subtle. I like it that people might take in their first glimpse and see the person and the birds in the front and the vault, which is what the pyramid thing is called.
The vault,
and then come back to it later and, oh, what are those flying things? So yeah, I know I like it as an element. I like the kind of the faint silhouette idea of them. That works. I like it.
I can make it just a little bit darker, so you know that they're a thing in the sky. And what I can do is I can just erase them if they're looking too uniform in areas. Just kind of, you know what I mean? Like make it a bit more random. Do you know what I mean? Like they're not on top of each other, or that it's not like an actual, I suppose, pattern that's exact. So
they're not in a tight military formation or anything.
Yeah, well, it's their natural. I mean, and the way in which the other thing is having painted landscapes for so long and just nature and animals for so long, studying them. In general, nature has this kind of randomness about it. Like it's hardly ever uniform. Like if you make two rocks the same in a landscape, that can happen in reality, but in the reality is that's very rare to happen. That two rocks look exactly the same. Two structures look exactly the same.
People will spot it instantly.
Yeah, so it's about randomizing it as much as possible. And that's the challenge of doing environments. People think environments are easier to paint than characters. I think environments are probably harder. Having painted both, I think, moderately well, now I really think environments are probably the toughest. I find them the most enjoyable. I like everything, but I think for me, environments are the most challenging because of that, because there's so many things that you can do with it,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and I mean that randomness thing it's quite right. Like I was watching the latest episode of Game of Thrones recently, and no spoilers, but there is a crowd scene, and they've obviously used one of those CGI crowd programs to do it. And within half a second of seeing the big pan shot of the crowd, I was like, okay, and that's the repeating unit they've used, because I can see the same guy with the same bald spot, in two parts of the crowd, doing the same movements. And yeah, I mean, we are trained to pick out patterns. So it can become jarring when you do notice it out of place.
How's that look to you? We have few different.
That looks really cool.
It's kind of like like there could be some of that comes in, flies in, swirls around the structure, and then they fly off. That's how they get energy. That's how they can do a charge up.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I mean, certainly the vault in the lore that we're writing for Crucible is a source of not only great mystery but great power. So so that element is certainly present.
I did gather that when you were talking. So the vault. So the reason why I keep on forgetting the vault is because I keep on, whenever I think it's the vault, I think, no, it can't be the vault, because the vault's kind of been done in Borderlands. You know what I mean? Not in a bad way, like that, it's not original, but it's just, I keep on thinking back to the Borderlands vault for some reason.
Yeah.
So
it's really hard to come up with a snappy, short, catchy sounding name that hasn't been used for something else already.
I know. And that's, I totally agree, because I was like, with Luminous Ages, I should just call it Dragon Ages. And it's like, well, Dragon Age has been done, the game's been done, or call it Fantasy Ages. That could work. Yeah, I think the Luminous Ages makes sense, because there's luminaries, they're the major mages, but there are many ages that this universe goes through, and they also enter Earth realm a lot. So basically the whole idea is they escape from Earth into reality at some point, through dream portals. So it explains. Yeah, so I don't want to go into too much of my narrative or story and give any of it away to fans. So
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, so I definitely agree. It's hard to keep something original. I mean, first in the alpha version of our game, the insectoid race we had were called the Skitter, and it was. And I mean, we've got a dozen people, all of whom are diehard geeks, who worked for 10 months. Who worked for 10 months on that, calling them Skitter, and none of us spotted that it was the name of the alien race from
Falling Stars. Yeah, and I would spotted that for you straight away, dude, because I love that series. That's why you need to run ideas past me. It's really funny because people like go to me, hey, Anthony, like, is there something you really, really love? Like, are you a Star Wars nerd or are you a Lord of the Rings fan? There are things like I grew up with, like growing up in the 80s, I grew up with like the Never-Ending Story and Star Wars. That and the Labyrinth, they're the three things that I could watch. You know what I mean? But in saying so, I like anything that's well done, and anything in general. So like, usually I'll watch most television series in the background while I'm painting because, like, for that reason, that like I can read books on stuff, but for the reason that things come out so often, right? There's so many things and universes out there. You really don't want to use other people's terminology. The other thing is there is a book, like with my book, Luminous Ages. There's an actual book out there with luminaries in there, but they're totally different. But we have luminaries, but we have captivaries. No one's done a captivary yet.
Right.
So, but there's no other way to explain a luminary. I can't give away their power, but all I can say is they bring light or illuminate things to life. Using dream magic, and I can't say how they do that, or what their powers are. But how else can you explain what that power or that school of magic is? So it's hard. I think it's going to get harder and harder for creators to come up with totally new ideas.
I mean, the other option is to just come up with a meaningless jumble of letters and call it that, and say, it's from an alien or fantasy language, and that can work fine. But you need a hook to hang it off for people to care about why why Zixplik Nick, the role-playing game or the comic, is interesting.
Yeah. I think if a game is designed well, and I think if a story is really well written, I don't think names kind of mean anything. Like if you look at like Game of Thrones, Valar Morghulis, like that name, that word comes into my head. What the hell is that? You know what I mean? Like it's not an actual anything from our language, but for some reason, it's because the story is well written. That word is in my head. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the point I'm making is like I'm kind of lucky because I'm trilingual. I speak Greek and Cypriot, which is a dialect of Greek, ancient Greek. I also know Japanese, some Japanese, so I can kind of make up words. I can draw. When I'm creating fantasy names and characters, I draw from like ancient Greek words, which is Ionian Greek, which is the language that my ancestors speak. Plus, I can draw from Japanese, mix them up. I mix them up, and then I can put them in a random generator, and then like, okay, that's the name of this character, if it hasn't been done. And that, I think it doesn't really matter whether, if people recognize it or not, if the story's done well, if the game is done well, which it has been done well for you, I think it's been done very well. It's a good idea, this whole idea of coins. I think that's all that matters. I think if something catches on and people like it, they're going to use those names, regardless of whether you call it. Obviously, as long as it's not anything offensive, but if it's called like Simeonius or I don't know, whatever you think up of, or look, you know what? Even a great example is Lovecraft.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Cthulhu.
That was deliberately difficult to say because it conveys such like alienness.
Exactly right.
And I love it for that.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is the difference. That's what you need to kind of remember, that you do that. With fantasy, it's not. It doesn't have to be, something so, I suppose, stereotypical is the word, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope I'm making sense now.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense to me. I'm kind of. I should probably mention at this point that the material in which the whole world that we built floats is called the luminous ether. So.
What's it called?
The luminous ether. So.
That's really weird because, like, you never know if my comic takes off and your game takes off, like goes like viral. Then we can have an episode where my characters enter the luminous ether to save your planet. You know what I mean?
That'd be awesome.
To save your structures, and it all uses green magic and that. So
I'm down. I'm definitely down for that.
And that's definitely what they do. I mean, they do enter other dream planes. I mean, so there's a lot happening. But,
cool.
So have we got any more questions in the thing? Can you see any more questions? Because I'm focusing on painting at the moment.
Let's have a look. I think you have to say that the last question is answered before it moves down the queue. I know.
Yes, answered. What do I say? How do I do that? Wait a second.
I think you just click the tab and mark it as answered or something.
Done. It says done. Okay, it's done.
Yep, cool. I know Heath is trying to get on board and ask some questions. Our mate Heath. We should give a shout out to the Antipodean D20 and Heath Fondon who brought us together. And introduced us. He's a wonderful guy, and I'm not being paid for this endorsement.
Neither am I. Well, maybe I don't.
So hopefully he'll have some interesting questions for us. Oh, he's been added. I can see him added.
I've added the request for people to submit questions. I don't know.
Cool.
Something's happening. Links. I don't know. Let's have a look. It's got some weird stuff happening here. I think it's having hardware issues before I post the question. So I'll let you manage that. If I need to do anything, just let me know and I'll click back to it. So I think you might have done it in the chat. I'll just have a look at the chat.
Yeah. I just got a notification that you joined.
Can do that.
There he is.
If you can't get to the questions, folks, onto the actual thingamajiggy on the chat app, whatever it is, you can do it in the Google Hangout chat room or whatever it is to Heath and myself. And Heath. Sorry, not Heath. I'm getting all mixed up with names. Gareth. So Gareth will be able to respond or at least read out the question. So what I'm doing here is I'm just painting in more of these I suppose the grass of the plains. I'm just going in here and just using what I'm using is a smudge tool, but there's also this mixer brush tool which allows me to mix it like real paint. So I'm trying to give it like an organic painterly feel. Even digitally, I try and use digital tools to let me still paint every stroke of grass.
Nice.
So that's benefit of digital. And I'm just got this textured brush. I showed this is the brush I'm using at the moment for rocks. It's like a textured brush.
Nice.
I'm just going in and it creates like texture and ripples and stuff into the rocks. There we go. And there's so much you can do like with digital painting. I mean, it's pretty cool. Digital. I mean, I love traditional media and I do a lot of traditional media, but I just find that digital has that. I suppose makes me want to paint more. It's really weird. Like I know it sounds lazy, but it does give you that kind of flexibility. Like if you make an error or you don't like a stroke, you can just Control Z. You know what I mean?
I don't think it's laziness at all. It's refining something that it gives you a chance to see the finished product and make it better.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, with traditional media, you would have, you just have to repaint it. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
there's pros and cons to everything. And traditional media can be very tactile as well. So it can be very, I suppose, spontaneous. But I think both are good. Okay, we've got a lot of posts there. I don't know what's going on there.
oh, that's me talking to Heath.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah.
So are you happy with those birds, Cylons, whatever they are? Let's call them Cylons.
Cylon birds, yeah, I am. Yes, they're beautiful. It's just the right. It's just the right sort of, not quite the right shape to be a bird, but in the distance. Yeah, so that's spot on.
Some weird kind of structure, sci-fi structure almost, but not. Like it almost lends itself to some sort of mystical thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
something mystical.
That's definitely the goal that we're going for. I mean, I know there's the blatant mystical with the giant floating pyramid, but the subtle as well is something, to capture. I think we have a question coming in now from Mr. Farndon.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let him type out his question. Just trying to think what else I can say about this piece. So I guess just in the game world, this area of the world is called, so far, the Sea of Hungry Grass. So the idea being that it's this desolate, well, not desolate, but it's arid, with very, like sharp, razor-edged grasses that pretty much only the people who live there know how to walk amongst comfortably without getting slashed to ribbons, and the local fauna and flora, obviously, are basically adapted to being quite hostile. The idea that I had for the reason the vegetation is so sharp is that it actually gets its nourishment and vitamins and minerals and stuff from blood.
Nice.
So animals that walk through it will get cut up enough that they'll feed the plants, and then they eat the plants, and cycle goes around like that. The
animals die very easily, or what?
Sorry, what was that?
Did animals die very easily, or they know how to survive? They don't get cut up and know how to survive.
Yeah, it's a trade-off. It's the weak animals and the sick animals and the not careful animals are the ones that succumb. And generally speaking, most of the animals that live there have really tough skin or other ways of protecting themselves, or in other ways have learned to get slashed up a lot and not care.
They got a hardy skin and they heal quickly or something.
Yeah. So, and the culture that lives in this area are called the Subreka, and they're nomadic, given that it's so arid and the resources are fairly limited, and they're formed of a combination of all 6 of the species. There are some areas in our world that are dominated by one species or other, but this is one of the ones that has a blend of the different species, and they all work together to survive in this environment, and each uses their particular strengths. So, like the skier being insectoid and they have chitinous skin, they can move around in this environment really easily. Same with the calateur, they're made of stone or clay. They don't have any trouble with it, whereas the humans and the yakshai have really soft skin, and so they're the ones who sort of do the more supporting roles than the wandering around roles. So the idea is that in this arid environment, they've they've learned cooperation by necessity.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a question here from Mr. Funden. The wings for the mechanical bird, is there a reason they're much like a crescent moon? Yes.
We
Yes.
covered that before, so.
Well, yeah, I'll give the short version. The reason is because I thought it was cool. And so I thought, would it work as an actual thing if we drew it? And I think that Anthony has demonstrated that yes, it does look cool when it's drawn, and so it's going to become one of the creatures of the.
I made a brush preset, so I've got a brush I'll say that I can give you in case other artists need it, but that's just like an outline shape that I can use as a brush.
Yeah.
I created the brush myself.
Cool.
So, but it looks cool because I painted it, that's why.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think it looks cool because you painted it while I was talking, so.
Even better, that's it. I was taking the instruction while you were talking.
Test.
Inspired by your beautiful words, so.
I heard somebody say test.
Oh,
Ooh,
hello.
I think that's Mr. Funden.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Heath.
Yeah, Anthony sent me through a link that made me join rather than view and watch. I can bow out and leave you to your
No,
to
not
your
at all.
video.
Not at all. You have much to contribute.
I missed much of the start because of technical difficulties. It looks like I can branch into IT. The bird looks very cool. A name that came to mind was the razor dove.
Oh, that's a cool name.
Okay.
Are they aggressive though? Are they aggressive animals?
I haven't decided yet, so I don't know.
The sweeping look of the wing and the fact that you keep referring to it looking metallic made me think of it. Perhaps the wings are almost razor sharp feathers of some descript.
Yeah. Certainly. I mean, given the setting that I just described, creature that hunts by flocking around its prey and cutting it to pieces. It's like an airborne sort of piranha, I guess. There's definitely
the word evisceration comes to mind.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to be standing in the path of one of these.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah. So,
I've got to say this picture looks very impressive.
Yeah. Thank you. I've talked long and hard at Anthony about it. But no, he's done a great job, and given what you know, Heath, about the world, do you reckon it fits?
I think it does. I do like. I see Anthony playing with the birds and bringing them in and out. I think it does need that. Like I did catch a little bit when the hardware was working earlier about Anthony saying about drawing one into the picture and sort of the photography that I dabble into. We call this leading lines. You have lines that draw the person into the picture you took, and I think. He's hit the nail on the head when he's saying about the birds sort of draw you to the item in the sky. I overheard you were talking a little bit about some naming of it, Vault or something.
Yep, Vault.
Prism, Nexus. I'm sure there's a word there somewhere that I did overhear a little bit of talk about. What words have already been used by other companies, and sort of the thought of IP does cross the mind of what you can achieve and do. I think some words are generic enough that they can be used for many applications, and although as long as you're mindful of something, then I think I think something like the Vault is quite commonplace enough that you can take it and make it your own without any problem of because what you've written and what you've drawn here is to me looks very much removed from what previously other materials have used the nomenclature the Vault.
Yeah, I mean, in a very early draft we called it the Treasury, but Vault gives more of the impression of a place that is hard to get into, which this definitely is. It's meant to be sort of an end game, high-powered level thing that PCs can try and crack into to find out secrets of the world, sort of thing. So Treasury sounds more like something that you use on a daily basis.
Yeah. How about the Lumen Vault?
Well, the Lumen is already
Oh, okay.
the celestial body that provides light. So
I might have.
Go on.
So this item in the sky doesn't pertain to them?
Well, not in any way that I'm going to discuss. Prior to the release of the product.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the unusual shape of the Crucible and the myth cycle about it that is generally understood by people in the world is that it was a world that was created, many eons ago by 6 great powers, and and so I mean, it's normal to them that it's shaped like a giant bowl, and they're at the bottom of it, and there's this stationary luminous body above them that goes from bright during the daytime to silvery at nighttime. That's just normal. So any deeper wisdom is something that PCs will have to uncover by buying the book.
Fair enough.
And we hope. I should point out, just actually before I forget, the designs on the faces of the vault, the circular pattern which represents fire, and the one on the other side, which I think is air.
Yeah, that's air.
Yeah, were designed by Delph Devoivre. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce her
I'm
last
glad
name.
you said that, because I don't think I could pronounce that.
Anyway, Delph is a wonderful, wonderful lady from France who I met through a different Kickstarter, and she designed the faces of the vault for us. So all credit to her for that. She's given us some really great visual cues that are going to be sort of carried through a lot of the art that we're using for Crucible. So thank you, Delph. We love you.
Bonjour and merci beaucoup.
Yeah, so what else? Ask more questions, Heath.
Well, having missed part of the show through technical difficulty, I'm not quite sure where you are up to with it.
Well, it's okay. If you ask a question we've already discussed, we'll just tell you.
We'll just say, hey, watch the video. We've already answered that, so just watch it.
I'll go back and watch the video and I'll get back to you in an hour. Trying to think of something specific or something generic that we can then sort of delve into without giving away too much information prior to.
Yeah, I have something if you haven't thought of anything.
No, that's right. I was just going to say, how would you describe the game in 10 words or less?
Should we do it both games or your game?
Well, let's do Luminous Ages, because we've talked about Crucible a bit.
Yeah,
we'll start off with Luminous Ages. We can do both, I suppose. We could talk about both. Let's try both. Luminous Ages is, I suppose, it is a trading card game, but also is a tabletop game. It's, I don't know how to describe it, really. Sorry, that sounds really horrible. I think the best way to describe it is it is more world building based. So I was talking before about the new mechanic that's come in is you create a land, and I've got a graphic here to describe it. You create a land, a core land, and then you have dream lands, and then you have these things called dream structures. I'll just zoom in a minute to show you. And what you do is, this is in design. Sorry about the noises in the background. Someone decided to wrap wheelies, so very bogan-y of them.
We can incorporate that into the art, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's the birds. Those cassowary type birds are doing burnout. So in the painting, so the way it works is place every land you can place a land, but it's different to Magic. It's not reliant. It's not based on chance. So you're not top decking like Magic the Gathering or any other game. It's a combination between Hearthstone and Magic, where you have your 5 core lands, like these 1-star lands, out on the field. You can choose to bring one out from your core area, you dominate one land, or you control it, you conquer it, and then you can place either a dream structure, and they're in your deck. Your dream structures, your dream lands, sorry, and your dream structures are in your deck. And what happens is you build them onto there, and so now this land, this dream island, a dream land gives you extra dream magic, so it's 3 points that you can produce. This one is a dream structure. It's based off the landscape I'm doing now for Gareth. It creates an extra dream magic, but it gives a buff if you have a brown creature on there defending the core land. It's basically you put your creatures on here like this. They defend it. It's like it's an army building game, and you defend your lands because what happens is your opponents can drain your dream magic. They can drain yours. That was not 10 words. I apologize for that. So. But I would say trading card game, world building, army construction, Hearthstone meets Magic the Gathering. That's probably the 10 words there. So does that summarize it in a nutshell, or?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think the visuals help.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So you basically your structure on there. So there is we're building at the moment. We've finished building the 1 versus 1 game, or you can play 5 people. If everyone buys a deck, you can all verse each other, or you can buy my game now. We've got the cards already made up, and you can buy one deck and share and verse each other out of the same deck. It's called a shared deck mode. So that we've got basic mode and we're writing it at the moment, what the rules are for shared deck mode. Cool. You can have as many cards as you want in your shared deck as well. You're sharing it with someone else. But the rule is that you'll be able to shuffle your graveyard with any cards to discard. We call that the discarded dream area. Your discarded dream can be shuffled back into your dream library. It's all about dream magic, and you can then keep on playing with that until someone wins the game. So at the moment, the 1 versus 1 mode is made, the multiplayer mode is made, the shared deck mode is all made, so you can play it. The other thing we're working on is a team cooperative game where you verse the dragons. I've got a prototype that's already been made, and we've already been playing it. We're testing a deck that has to be constructed. So for that game mode, there's a constructed deck that you buy for that so that everyone can play, so it's fair. You all have to team up together to beat the 3 dragons. The demonic dragon, who's evil. There's 2 or 3 major dragons that are evil in this universe. There's the dark dragon, the titan dragon, and then the red dragon, the fire dragon. They're all evil, and they corrupt other dragons. And what happens is they've turned all the dragons against you. So it basically starts off, if you play one person versus the dragon deck, you can play it versus the dragon, like the computer. You can beat that one deck. It's a challenge, but you can beat the dark dragon. But if you're playing 2 people, you're versing 2 dragons. You play 3 people, you verse 3 dragons, and so on and so forth. So you can have as many people play the one 80-card deck. And so that way, it's not... The whole idea is... I love Magic the Gathering, I love Hearthstone, I love all those games, but I want to make it that it's a game that you can buy every year. We're not going to create heaps of expansions. It's just like one expansion per year based on the narrative of that story.
Yep.
And the whole idea is we want to make it so that it's a family game. It's playable by everyone. There's so many modes in it that you can, you don't have to outlay a lot of money. You can share it with someone else. Obviously, we would like people to buy it, but so we're trying to, if there is an element where there is a TCG element to it in the 1 versus 1 mode, where if Heath buys a deck and Gareth buys a deck, you can verse each other. So that allows people, if they want to go competitive and invest more in it, they can. But we're making the focus more on shared deck modes as well as the group modes, where everyone can get involved, and a simple basic mode. I've got it down here, basic mode for kids to play. Because I myself played D&D, I played Magic the Gathering my whole life, and the only people I play with are my friends that are into that. And like, say if I go away with my friends or my family on a holiday, I find those games are too hard, unless you play like Hero Quest or something like that. It's just too hard. You know, D&D and Magic the Gathering are just too hard for my parents and my siblings to get, or my nieces and nephews to get. So this game for me is a simpler version. The combat's been, even now the rules, we just made the combat easier. Before we used to have land drains or land walking phase. That's been abolished. It's just if you attack a land and no one's there, you get to drain the dream magic out of it. And it's the first one to get to 20 points, or to roughly to 30 points of resources. That's dream life and magic points. And you can summon a dragon, and once you've got your dragon out, it gives you an advantage. If your dragon stays out for 3 turns, you win the game. If your opponent goes to -10, you drain them that much, your army's stronger, and you drain them to -10, they lose the game. So it's a lot simpler. And in saying that, there are options to play the game in many ways, but also there's options in strategy. There's going to be so many options. There will be people that be about building a really, really big army of small creatures. There'll be people that have spells, and they drain your dream magic to -10. There'll be people that are rushing to know how to rush to 30 really fast and solidify their win really quickly. So there'll be different ways and strategies to win the game and play the game. There may be things that prevent you from draining your opponent from draining your land, defensive lands and stuff like that. But we're pretty much 2/3 of the way there. We're finishing off the last 30 cards of the game. By June, July, we'll have all the rules finished for all the modes pretty much done. And we're planning to have it fully playable by September, and then ready for full release in November. So, but you can buy the beta now. The cards are still playable, even if they get expanded upon, and the text changes. It doesn't matter. I think it makes the cards worth more. So if the text on the cards do change, it means you've got the old series cards, and they're worth a lot more money.
Exclusive.
So.
Yeah.
This is something that Anthony was talking to me about the other day, and what really intrigued me about what he's sort of just rehashed there, as well as what he was telling me the other day, is I like how there's a solitaire, I like how there's a co-op, I like how there's a versus. He's focused on the story, the narrative, and the cards, rather than you need to go and buy this because there's 15 million different settings, and if you don't have a certain card that affects any one of those settings, then the person who shelled out more cash than you have is going to beat you each time. I love the fact that it's narrative and skillful gameplay based, rather than, like he said before, the chance of drawing the right card to help you at the right time. And when I was in uni in 19 and we were playing Magic then, that was one of the things, because I at the time had no cash. I was lucky enough that someone in the hometown I came from that actually given me some of their older cards, and I was able to go up against this guy who, no word of a lie, his deck was worth $1,500, and I had a deck that was worth maybe 40 with one card in there that was worth a bit more, because I'd been given it by this guy who played it for a bit, went, yeah, no, not for me, and gave me a couple of his cards. And see, the chance part of that is, this guy beat me multiple times with his deck versus my deck. And then he had some of the older cards that, now are valuable and worth a lot more. Beat me every time except one, because this one time I managed to draw the one card out of the how many cards I had in my deck that stopped the mechanism of his deck. And it was just the one time, but it was the fact that it was chance,
that's all
not
about
skill.
chance. It's not
Yeah.
skill. Exactly.
And that's why I sort of stopped playing Magic. It was like it was too much chance, and the fact that you needed to throw a ton of cash.
You spend more money to increase your chances, and
absolutely.
That's not,
and that's why
I want to make it that if you spend more money, you're basically making the game more fun. You know what I mean? That's the only difference.
And that's one of the things. That's one of the things I really enjoy.
You're adding more cards to your deck so that you can share with people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be pay to win. It should be, pay to broaden the appeal.
Not pay to win, play to win.
Yeah, and like the whole idea is we've got the 1 versus 1 mode. We have where if you build a competitive deck, you can verse each other, and there'll be tournaments like that. Obviously, hopefully, and then you can have if you have your friends around and they're all got competitive decks, you can all verse each other. And if you know someone that has spent a little bit more. It's not really even on luck, because the reality is, your core lands are out there already. You're drawing your actual creatures, and you're drawing structures that give you benefits, that create creatures for you. So you never have the mulligan issue. Well, you never have this issue of, oh no, I've got no land in my hand, so I have to start again. You have no excuses. You start the game with 5 resources that you can control and conquer. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's a major advantage. That basically gives everyone a fighting chance to win the game. And the luck, and basically you're not top decking. You're not like what Heath's saying is you're waiting for the next draw. What am I going to draw? That doesn't happen. You're like we were playing 3 or 4 games the other night, testing it, and on Sunday night, and myself and Henry were testing the game, and it was like, wow, you won the game, like Henry won the game, and he still had a full hand of creatures in his hand. So you actually have options. So there's always going to be a rare card in your hand that you can verse someone with, and they will more than likely have a rare card or really powerful card in their hand that they can buy themselves time to try and win the game. So it kind of evens the field a lot, where you're not worried about you have to have those really rare lands that give you the multi-lands that give you 2 mana or whatever it is. There will be rare cards, but it's not like that's the major thing that's going to be give you the advantage. It's more about your skills.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying these games don't have skills. There's definitely a lot of skill involved in Magic. I don't disagree with that at all. But I think the main thing I'm really excited about is the fact that I can bring a deck to Heath over coffee one day, and we can just share my deck and have a game, and verse each other. And the same with when we got the dragon mode sorted, we can verse the dragons together too. So we can. The other great thing about the dragon mode is there's you can't in basically the multiplayer dragon mode, no one can die. So what that means is if anyone dies, if anyone gets killed off by the dragons, we were testing that out the other night. If anyone dies, gets killed off by a dragon or a god, because there's not just dragons, there's also evil gods. If anyone dies, everyone loses the game. So you can help each other. You can send creatures over to defend your allies' lands. But there's also this espionage element where you may keep someone at -8, but you don't want to get them back up to 5 because they may beat you to getting the most dragon damage in. So there's still this competitive element where you want to keep everyone alive, but it's the first person that does the most. Whoever does the most dragon damage and kills all the dragons off wins the game. And then you have first, second, and third. So it's not even just winning. You have first place, second place, third place, and fourth place. So whoever accumulates the most Dream, Magic, and Dragon damage combined leads the game. So that's a really exciting thing I'm looking forward to, because it is like a tabletop game. It's like everyone's got the same constructed dragon deck that you all have to verse. It's basically a board game version as well. So and that's what I wanted to make, something that's, I suppose, value for money, that you can go, hey, I can play competitively, I can introduce friends to it, or family, and and get them playing at at the shack or wherever you go on holidays, somewhere Christmas Day or whatever it is, whatever celebration you have, birthday party, whatever. So anyway, I'll stop talking. So
No, that's good.
Any questions? I think I've answered them all. Maybe, maybe not.
No,
yeah, no, you covered it pretty comprehensively, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good to come up with a game, especially when it's a card game. But the winning thing for me is, as you've just done and as you did the other day when we caught up, is showing how it's different and how it's different with good reasons. And like we said before, you definitely brightened my day by seeding that thought about solitaire games, co-op games, and the fact that it's skill and narrative based rather than chance and money based.
Yeah.
But no, that I think that's going to be a definite draw card and plus.
Was that a purpose on there? A draw card?
Yeah.
Snap.
Yes, all puns intended.
Yeah.
So, Gareth, talk about your game. We know it's a coin RPG. Like, explain more about it to everyone, because I think there might be people that just have never heard this. My YouTube channel may all of a sudden get a lot of people viewing it. I think we've got a few people watching the channel, but
yeah.
Please feel free to tell us all about the game. So
sure. Yeah. So Crucible is a coin-based fantasy tabletop RPG of evolving morality and diversity and currency. That was the sort of tagline we went with for our Kickstarter that ran last year. Diversity, morality, currency, and we. So, I guess I'll start with the mechanics, because I normally start with the world frame and then I talk about that forever. But I'll start
Actually,
with
one quick question before you get into it is, why did you feel a need for a game that focuses on morality?
That's a very good question, Heath. I'm glad you asked that. And what I might do is I'm going to steal the screen and screen share.
Yeah, do you want me to stop screen sharing? I'll stop.
No, I can just overwrite you.
Stopped it. Whoa, there I am. There you can see me. Scary.
Oh, actually, maybe I can't. I don't know.
You can't screen share at all. I think it's at there's a button. We'll actually do this. Whoa. Okay. There's a button here. Can you see this? Oh no, you can't. Screen share is in the top left-hand corner. I'll start again with screen share. There's a button in the top left-hand corner.
Yeah.
It's called screen share. See that? We're going into many windows now, but yeah, see that screen share?
Yep.
The green button there.
There we go. That should now be showing Cosm Games.
Cosm Games? Wait.
Yep.
And I'll stop talking so it doesn't go to me.
Cool. So the morality question is something that's come up a lot in gaming for me over the years. The fact that in some of the big industry games you start out by choosing your morality and then are constrained by it and punished for breaking it. Seemed to me to be an odd way around to do it. Increasingly so as I role played. While I talk, I'm just going to scroll through some of the artwork that we've got so far for our various species. This is the grassy, the plant-based species. So, because one of the things that has always happened to me as I role play in a campaign is, as you get to know your character better, you change, you diversify, your morality evolves, and I wanted something that would reflect that in a mechanical sense that wasn't just, oh, you've broken your morality, now you need to be punished.
Now you need to die.
Yeah, so in creating the Crucible, what we wanted to do was say morality and moral decisions are not just an important element of the overall system, but they're actually fundamental to the way that the game world works. So the Crucible was built or created by these 6 primal powers: Earth, Air, Fire, Water, and Flux and Fate, specifically to exalt, and I shouldn't use that word, to enlighten mortal beings and raise them up in terms of morality, to help them achieve ascension and enlightenment. And so the character advancement system for Crucible is entirely based around morality, and the way around here is a list of alignments, or here is a list of things that you cannot do. The best way to have a moral system that can be diverse and flexible is for players to come up with it, and the only measure of success is whether or not they stick to their own rules. There are a couple of other caveats to that, but essentially the morality system for Crucible is here are a whole bunch of very descriptive and very broadly interpretable principles, which we call tenets. You can mix and match them however you want. We've come up with a system that explains where each of them came from, so there is an order to the world that makes sense, but none of them are off limits. Like, there are 36 tenets that are derived from the 6 primal powers, and there are another handful that come from elsewhere. And you can mix and match them. You can create a character who, at the beginning of the game, might have a whole set of beliefs but has never been tested against them, and so essentially has no moral system in place, and then through gameplay learns exactly what they feel. So our ideal sort of curve for new players is you don't start with any tenets. You play your first game, you think about it, you go, okay, well, the way I behaved in that game, I would say that this tenet makes sense. One of the tenets is, say, destroy what offends. Maybe you're a very uncompromising character. So you take destroy what offends, or you take stand your ground if you're playing a stubborn character. And how you interpret that is up to you. And so you build up this list of tenets, and then when it comes time to temper, the process of increasing power is called tempering. You then are measured against how well you stuck to the things that you said you believed in.
Cool.
So it's not even like, you weren't playing chaotic neutral correctly. It was, well, you picked these 3 tenets and you told us what they meant, and then you didn't behave like that, so I guess they're not your tenets. And so it makes it a lot easier for players to engage with it because they're making a personal choice. And it also ties into the world frame because the whole point is that you advance yourself morally. Morality in Crucible is about action. It doesn't matter what you think. It's about what you do. And so it encourages people to take action, to act out their morality within the world, and they're rewarded for it in the form of raw character power. So you literally become superhuman and then godlike because you stick to your guns, morally speaking. So that's the morality side of things. Does that answer your question, Heath?
Yeah, absolutely. So you found a spot in the market with something that could be a little bit different, and it seems to have fleshed out very nicely.
Yeah.
And I think it's good because it's not just when you say morality, a lot of people sort of think that it's all rosiness, roses, songs, and happiness. I dare say if you pick um, some of those tenets that are not so nice, it's a matter of staying true to what those tenets are to achieve
Yes.
advancement in your character.
Yes. And the thing is that there are what would be traditionally considered evil tenets, and the world doesn't distinguish between good and evil in that sense. If you choose a tenet and you stick to it and believe in it and act according to it, the way that the Crucible is built, it will respond to that by making you more powerful. There is a reason why it works for what is considered to be evil as well as good in the world. Basically, the system is slightly broken, and it wasn't originally intended to foster evil, but now it does. So it means that you can have a character who has, say, two traditionally positive tenets, or at least morally neutral tenets, and one tenet that's like, be the monster they fear, or smother with caution, what is it? Bind with caution, smother with doubt is one of the other ones. And so they can play through being a character who has a complicated morality without being punished for not heading like a straight arrow in one direction. We're still developing a visual way of portraying that, but because it's an explicit part of the world frame, it's not just mechanics, it's also understood as part of the world. We're going with imagery of pillars. So the 6 pillars of morality are the ones that the primes, who are the guys who made the world, laid down with the tenets on them, kind of like the stone tablets, I guess. And then people have interpreted them wildly from that. I'm just scrolling through. This is the Kickstarter page that we ran some of the art, and which brings us to the coins, of course. So the way that PCs are different from normal everyday people is from these ancient spiritual tokens that were placed in the world in order to help people achieve enlightenment. Over time and through misuse, a lot of them have burnt out, and so some enterprising person decided that these burnt out spiritual tokens would make good form of exchange, and they've turned into coins. And so now everyone just looks at these things as coins, and it's only the PCs who can tell which are the ones that still have ancient power in them and which don't.
That's very cool.
Thank you. So your characters in the game world are actually finding these powerful spiritual tokens, and then drawing on their power in order to fuel their supernatural abilities, which range from like starting PCs pitched at about twice as good as your average, or as a good talented all-rounder. So the normal range of traits in the game is for average people is 1 to 6, and for starting PCs is 2 to 12. So you're already better than the person on the street, and it goes up to 1200. So like and each time you go through a moral evolution, each time you become tempered, you gain access to a higher denomination of coin that you can tap for power safely, and the denomination of the coin is the multiplier on the number of successes you get from it. So mechanically speaking, it fits in the world as coins, and it fits in the world as power tokens. So if you throw, sorry, go on.
I was going to sort of interrupt and jump in. So does that mean that there's a scaling mechanism that should a low level character find a more powerful token,
Yep.
they've got to get used to using the ability and just can't do it straight off the bat, thus sort of breaking some of the mechanics?
Yep. Basically, there are a couple of ways that we manage that. For the first is Hoard, H-O-A-R-D, Hoard. Every character has a hoard, which is the maximum number of coins that they can hold.
Right.
And that is, it's the same for every character unless they choose to put that power into magic items. There aren't magic item shops. Every magic item in this game is created by the PC that wields it and is bound to them and evolves with them over time. So this was one of my other pet peeves, was magic shops, where you go in every level and swap out all of your gear. Like in the great epics like Arthur. Okay, it doesn't quite work for King Arthur because he does upgrade Excalibur. But like Sting, Bilbo found Sting and then gave it to Frodo, and Frodo had Sting. He didn't chuck it away when he got to Rivendell and swap it for Sting +2. That sort of thing. So basically, characters can invest some of their hoard into items, which means that they become very much more effective at the thing that object does. But in terms of managing coins, if you're holding more coins than you can safely hold in your hoard, it hurts for a start, which has a mechanical penalty. But yeah, it physically hurts. So if somebody piles a bunch of coins in your pocket, you'll know about it, because it'll hurt. Because literally your soul is not pure enough to be able to handle the power and the energy. And if you choose to use a coin mechanically that is more powerful than you can safely use, it sears your soul. So you can use it, and in fact, in one of the showcase games that we've run at conventions, one of the final confrontations involves facing a very much more powerful creature, which PCs have to, like a PC has the option of grabbing hold of a 100 denomination coin, which is fast, it's like the other end of the spectrum, and using it and killing themselves in the process, but giving themselves that last glorious heroic
swan song.
Yeah, swan song. Yeah. And there are, so it's a sort of scaled system. So you can cop it for the 1 or 2 denominations above where you are, and then beyond that it becomes.
That was lethal. One of the mechanics. That was one of the mechanics of some of the computer games I've played, where you're one level, a handful of XP short of the cool new weapon or armor you've just found, and because you don't have that handful of XP to be at the next level, you can't use it. That was always something that used to grind me. Whereas a lot of the homebrew rules for a situation like that, the tabletop game that I've played in many a game on many a continent, allowed a scaling effect of, if there was something that you had that you wanted to use, but you weren't quite like the correct level for it, you fell short by a slight, you could use it, but there would be a sort of an offset, a detriment to it, like a penalty of sorts. Now, depending on how vast that or small that difference was between your ability and the inherent magic ability of the item or what have you, it was directly reflective of the penalty or the difficulty it was going to take you to use said item. So your low-level guy picking up, or girl rather, picking up an item that might be 3 or 4 levels ahead of them might give a penalty that maybe it only works 1 in 4 times, whereas something that's you only fall short by say one level, one perceived level, that maybe it's got a 10% chance of not working rather than a 25% chance of working, or that one moment where, you know, the Kingslayer hero moment for the PC, where they pick up the item that's vastly ahead of them, and they've got to, you know, effectively have a 1 on a 100 to get it to work. You know, that penalty or limitation works, whereas, you know, otherwise you're a handful of XP short of needing to use it. You can't use it. You've either got to throw it away or trade it in at one of your aforementioned Acme incorporated magic shops.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, fundamentally, that kind of arbitrary limitation is just not fun.
No.
It's not dramatic, and it's not interesting to roleplay. So, what we the other part of the mechanic that because I come from a very sort of indie narrative, minimalist rules background, as a GM at least. Things like Nobilis and a lot of the very rules light stuff, or narrative focused stuff like Fate. One of the core parts of establishing the mechanical use of the coins in this game is that you know, you throw coins, you get heads, you add them up. They're the successes. You have to hit a threshold. That's the core idea for Crucible. But the threshold for any action where random outcome is not interesting is 0. So, you know, if you don't have to throw to walk down the street, you don't have to throw to ride a horse. Like if you're riding toward the villain's castle and you have to get there by midnight, you know, it's not dramatic.
Yeah.
To roll to throw to see if you can ride the horse. You know, there may be things on the road. It may be that the horse stumbles and you have to run and you get there just in the nick of time. That's the dramatic part.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
It's not, oh, we missed the final confrontation with the villain and the ritual went ahead and now the world is covered in darkness because I didn't spend that 1 point on horse riding. You know,
mechanics for the sake of mechanics.
Yeah, so yeah, any role, the result of which would not be interesting, has a difficulty of 0. So, cool. That's sort of.
What's one of our mutually favourite quotes? Define interesting.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is where individual groups and GMs get to determine for themselves what those parameters are, and that's a process of communication with groups that they're running for. You know, we don't want to tell people, you know, the limits on how to have fun. What we want to do is provide them with tools to have fun, and then let them have fun in their own way.
Well, that's exactly right. That's part of what I'm doing. Exactly the same sort of thing with the game, is have those very different modes in the game and the rules set up. So, you know, you can play, essentially you don't know what the game night's going to be like because there's so many ways you can play the game, or you can, the game itself, if the game itself has so many parameters, you know, then it makes it more creative for the people, you know, involved. Anyway, I'm thinking more of painting, so I just want to, is it alright if I go back to the painting for a bit?
It should already be back at the painting.
Yeah, I just want to show you, sorry, I wasn't sure if this is all working right. What I've done is I've painted a lot. So if you have a look, that's where it was before.
Yep.
That's where it is now. So we've got a lot of grass in there.
Cool.
And I've fixed up the clouds as well, just making them a bit more detailed. So I think it's pretty much getting there. I mean, I'll probably touch it up tonight. I'll see how I go with timing and getting it done, and I'll post it tomorrow, the final. Cool.
Awesome.
It's getting rather late here. It's nearly been 2 hours, so I'll wrap it. Well, we can wrap it up now. But what I was going to say is I wanted to check with you as well. I thought of adding these birds in the distance further, like white ones that are being like they're white because they're further off in the distance. I can make them. I can make them slightly more subtle, so that you know that they're kind of they're fading off into atmospheric perspective. So the atmospheric perspective makes them look distant. So just very small, and your eyes are led in again to the structure of the vault.
Almost looks like they're coming from that cloud or through that cloud.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of. It's open to ideas.
I like it. Yeah, I think that level of sort of changing level of detail is awesome. We can have a quick chat after we go offline about some specifics. Yeah, I think it's a brilliant piece, and I'm really, really grateful. Shall we do a final plug and wrap up?
Yeah. Do you want to start with the final plug first?
Yep, sure. So anyone who's interested in the Crucible side of this stuff, go to cosmgames.com. That's COSM games.com, and follow the links. We've got pre-orders open now for the hardcover rulebook and the custom coins, and you can also find links to our Kickstarter page. All of the updates on the Kickstarter are open to the public to read, so you can follow along with a lot of the stuff that happened and all of the world frame development. We're also on Facebook. Feel free to follow us, ask questions, that sort of thing. We are going to be organising the availability of this art piece. It's going to be available for sale through your site, Anthony. That's right.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. So it will appear in the Crucible role-playing book, but prints will be available and canvases on Anthony's site. So yeah, thank you very much for having us, Anthony.
That's right. Thanks for agreeing to do it. It's good to talk about other games as well, and I'm all about promoting other people's games and their art and whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think
makes YouTube a lot more interesting, I think.
I think. Well, I mean, the indie community of game developers is just a really collaborative one, and I want to see it continue in that vein. So So kudos to you.
No, thank you. So my final plug, I'll continue on from what you said, Gareth, is I've basically allowed Gareth to use this artwork in the book, so you'll all be able to grab it in the book. That's fine. But if you want to get these limited edition prints, you can actually get them through my website, and I'll give you the websites in a minute. And you can also get it through our Patreon as well. The Patreon address I'll type that up in a moment, but you can order the canvases through. I'll just bring that up 1 second.
I'll certainly cross-promote this through the Antipody and D20 as well.
Yes. Yeah, Antipody and D20 for all of your upside-down role-playing needs.
While we've been chatting, I've been posting to a couple of gaming groups, and I'm not sure whether they're listening or not, but the posts were liked by a couple of prestigious Wisconsin authors, one Mark Clover and one Hans Cummings, which I had the good fortune to meet whilst I was in Wisconsin for GaryCon back at the start of March. So they could be listening in. They could just be liking the post in support, so that the signal is pushed further into the cosmos.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you to both those fine gentlemen and to any others who are spreading through their networks.
Yep, thank you. And so I'll just quickly let you all know, you'll be able to grab the canvas prints for the Crucible artwork that I did, this one over here. It'll be touched up, it'll be posted on your website. We'll put a link on your Cosm Games website.
Yep.
So people can find that one there. It's obviously being donated into the book, so you can grab it in the book as well. But if you want to grab the limited edition prints, they're going to be on my shop at acristoillustration.com. The shop is over here and has all that other cool fantasy artwork and stuff like that. And if you heard my game and you thought it was awesome as well, you can support us on Patreon. I'll just get off I do support a lot of people on Patreon. So if you send me a message and you want to support me on Patreon, I also support other people. So it's kind of like a trade for trade. But at the moment, this is where you find Luminous Ages, patreon.com/Anthony Christou. Don't worry about all those symbols, that's just the Patreon address that it shows me. And yeah, it's got a lot of cool stuff, cool art like Cthulhu. We do all sorts of art as well as fantasy art. You can see here there's the Crucible artwork as well, and we give special rewards like videos. You'll get to see the beginning video, so you see the end video now for free, but we have the beginning video of how I got to this point as well, where fans can actually grab that as well. But this video is available to everyone, Crucible fans and Luminous Ages fans. And last thing I'll plug is luminousages.com. This is the comic. This is where you can find the card game and the latest updated rules, which will be updated this week for everyone. Yeah, thank you again, everyone, for joining in, and the people that dropped in and had a listen. And I don't know, I should get it on radio. What do you think? Am I good at plugging things or what? Should I get onto radio or what?
You have a face for radio.
Yeah,
Sorry?
Coming up next on Luminous Ages FM.
Coming up next on Luminous Ages, we have the Drakos Canterbury Mage summoning a dragon.
Cosm.
Yeah, alright guys, no, thanks a lot, and I've got to just figure out how to put this on YouTube. Hopefully it all worked. So yeah, I think it's live, so hopefully it goes forever on there. So yeah, but thank you.
Okay, thanks guys. Thanks everyone.
Thank you for the invite.
Thank you. See, I don't know. Do I have a radio face or do I have a film or something? I don't know.
Everyone has a radio face.
Radio face? Oh no, God. Oh shit. All right, so we'll stop the broadcast. Thank you, and yeah, hope you enjoyed it.
Okay, so.